The sky's the limit. There's no playbook at this point. And I think those that step up and figure it out and work really hard and pave their own way, they can achieve anything.
It's about people. It's about relationships. It's about understanding the client's pain and talking to them in their language, not the language of an accountant.
Your top clients are your competitors' top prospects. So if you're not showing up holistically with the attitude of how can I help you? How can I understand everything going on in your company, whether or not it's something I personally can do, then they are at risk.
Hi, it's Rob Brown here with the Accounting Influencers Podcast, another episode where we're continuing with a sequence of panels we're doing with some of the most thoughtful leaders, thinkers, experts, influencers in the world who care for and act for and serve the world of accounting. We're talking about the future of the profession and hitting some of the topics that are relevant right now. We've got a wonderful, illustrious, high-level panel with us today. I'm going to get the guests to introduce themselves in just a moment. And we are giving you here perspective. We're giving you insight, and we're giving you, instead of a one-to-one interview, a panel where you get different perspectives and points of view and opinions so that you can look over the garden wall, see what other people are doing and thinking, and inform you in your professional career. So without further ado, Todd Robinson, welcome to the show. Quick intro, please.
Well, thanks, Rob. I get to go first. Appreciate that. My name's Todd Robinson. I'm with Woodard Consulting. I have over 20 years of experience working with technology in the accounting profession to help firms operate more efficiently. And most recently, I'm now getting to work with those firms to help them build out an ideal CAS, client accounting advisory services practice. So that's what I'm doing. That's what I do best, Rob. And thank you for having me on.
Great. Angie Grissom, an old friend of mine. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. Excited to be here. I'm Angie Grissom. I'm an owner of the Rainmaker Companies. We are based in Nashville, Tennessee in the US and have worked in the accounting profession and professional services profession. The company's been around for over 30 years. I've been around in the industry just over 20, and I work with firms in growth planning, strategic planning, probably best known for the Rainmaker Academy, which is a business development and leadership training program, and just love the profession and excited to be here.
Thank you. Itamar, great to have you with us from Israel.
Excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Payam. Payam is a spend management platform. We serve today over 1,200 businesses, mostly in the US and in the EU and UK. Payam is a platform that helps accountants with three main things. A is work around virtual cards, so the ability to create credit cards and automate the reconciliation of those. Account payables automation, the ability to ingest invoices in scale and disperse payments, and procurement, to be able to build procurement processes in organizations.
Great to have you with us. James Hickey, welcome to the show. We go back a ways, you and I too.
We do, Rob, and we're still talking to one another, so that must be a good sign. Well, yeah, James Hickey recently became chief cat herder at Herding Cats, a consulting business based out of the UK, but supporting firms both here in the UK, but also in the US and other markets around the world, basically helping them to look to be better in everything they do. Like Todd and Angie, I don't look old enough, but I've been in the world of accounting for over 20 years. And my disclaimer is I've never done a day's accounting in my life. I'm an outsider looking in and trying to help the accounting world look out.
Wonderful. Well, it's great to have such a varied panel. Let's kick off. And Angie, I'll start with you on this one. We know we're in a changing world, a state of flux, a fork in the road. There's all kinds of things going on. And I'm going to ask you in a moment what the threats are, but that's another question. I'm just asking you how equipped you feel the accounting profession is to deal with the vast rate of pace of change that's going on right now.
Rob, I think they're better equipped than they were 4 years ago.
Right.
I think that through the pandemic, it probably catapulted the change in the profession 10 plus years in that short amount of time. So I feel optimistic about the preparation, because I think that the leaders see what has to happen in terms of remaining competitive and not being change resistors, but getting out there in front of the change. So I'm feeling a lot better about it than I did a few years ago.
Yeah. James, we hear the phrase future ready, but we need to be ready now, don't we? Because it's happening at the moment.
Yeah, and look, it's a very brave person that looks into that crystal ball and can see where the heck this is all going. I think that the firms that, or the people and the leadership teams that have got the bandwidth to look at tomorrow are well placed, but that is the very few within the profession. If I look back 20 years ago, we're still talking the same issues. We might have added the word COVID somewhere in there. We're looking at a profession that's brilliant about talking about change, not overly good at adopting change, partly down to business models, all of those sort of things. And yet we sit here in in a world that has amazing opportunity for the profession. But they've really got to understand their sort of magic sauce, their value that they're bringing to the market. And I would suggest most don't know that.
Yeah. Itamar, how do you view it? You're on the outside, you're serving them, you're giving them the tech software that they need. How equipped are they to handle everything?
I agree with Angie. I think COVID created really a transformation within the accounting profession. I think a lot of accountants were forced essentially to adopt technologies because of the working from home mentality that developed, and that created a huge uplift in productivity. And now it's obvious to everybody that tech is a huge enabler, and essentially you cannot think about the future of that profession without the technology.
Todd, accountants are not known as a breed for their ability to be agile and pivot, but they've perhaps shown that they can do it during COVID better than we thought they could. But how equipped do you feel they are to handle what's coming at them?
I mean, I agree with all the above and what everybody's already said, and especially Angie, the way she said it. You know, since COVID, I mean, I think we're more equipped now than we were 4 or 5 years ago. We've had to pivot into more of a virtual environment. I think we're collaborating more globally than, specific to our geographies and regions of the world that we live in and that sort of thing. And I think that's equipped us to be better prepared for what's to come. That being said, there's still improvement to be made. There's still threats that are out there and that sort of thing. And what do we got to do to be more proactive versus reactive to that?
Yeah. Let's deep dive into some of those threats right now. You're all looking at this from different perspectives, but you're talking to accountants all the time with your different areas of expertise. James, we'll start with you on this one. What one or two threats do you feel are the most acute for the accounting profession right now?
I think that one of the key ones, and we just talked about it, is this tech thing. And the reality, yes, absolutely. During COVID, there was a lot of progress made, 10 years, some quote. The reality is that most firms were pushed off the 10-meter diving board. And so it was, you have to do this because of what's happening. And so a lot of that lot of tech implementation was done not through choice, but we've got to do it. We've got to do it now. We've got to be able to allow remote working, all of these sort of things. So what I'm seeing is that a lot of firms sit on tech that hasn't been strategically integrated into the business. They're not seeing the efficiencies that they thought they would. They've spent a lot of money on it. Then that has the knock-on effect around capacity, all of those sort of things. So I think that what I'm seeing and what I'm helping a lot of firms with at the moment is that post-COVID, right, we got through it. We all seem to grow, but we're not quite sure why we grew, but we still grew. And now what we need to do is try and work out, okay, how do we bring all of that into line and take it on to deliver the next 5 years, 10 years growth or whatever. But for me, I think the number one thing that I see in the market is this one size fits all approach. When you look at it, all the headlines are around private equity, all these sort of things. And the reality is that's touching such a small population of firms within the profession. The average size of a firm in the UK and I believe in the US is between 3 and 5 people. So you've got a massive divergence of needs and all of those sort of things. And I think that when you listen to a lot of people who try and get into the profession, and Rob, you said earlier on, the accounting profession is the second most sold to profession in the world. They're generalizing, they're pigeonholing, they're talking about one size all fits solutions. And that, I think, is going to be the issue that holds back the progression that the profession needs. And I think that's going to be a massive challenge moving forward.
Yeah. What about you, Todd? You're talking to firms. What are the most acute threats?
Biggest threat by far is the people problem, the talent shortage, for sure. There's less people wanting to come into the accounting profession. It's not as sexy as it should be, right? And I don't know what we got to do to correct that. There's problems with the credentials to come into the profession in the CPA exam right now, and our younger generation not wanting to sit through that. My daughter just recently graduated. She's got a couple of friends that are working for a couple Big Ten firms here domestically in the US. They came in as interns sort of thing. They're working 50 to 60 hours a week. They're underappreciated, overworked, and the longevity of that is not going to sustain the business. So we have a problem. We have a people problem in the accounting profession. As much as I love the profession and the network, that's a reality. And what are we going to do to correct that? I'm really not so sure what's being done today when we're aware of this threat right now.
Yeah. Angie, you work with some of the best firms in the world, and everyone's feeling the talent crunch, aren't they? Would you say that's the biggest threat, or do you want to point to something else?
Well, definitely that's one of the two. So I agree with Todd in that it's talent. Attraction and retention of key talent is imperative. We are in the people business. Again, we're not selling tax returns. We are the service and the product. And so retention of people is huge. And I do tons of coaching with firm leaders globally and up and coming leaders. And there is a problem. There is a problem with the balance of work and hours and the reward system. So I think that's number one. The second issue, I think, or the biggest threat is the fact that a lot of times, I don't know if it's that accountants lack confidence or the way that they're wired or something, but we run into issues where people walk into situations with clients with blinders on. So they're only looking for opportunities of things that they themselves have been trained on or they offer. Therefore, if I'm meeting with James and I'm a tax person, I'm looking at James through the lens of a tax person. What does James need? And the reality of it is the opportunity out there is for us to step up as truly trusted advisors. We know from research that our clients want that. But the threat of CPAs either not having the confidence, the ability, the tools, skill set to be able to approach it in that way is a big one, because I tell everybody, your top clients are your competitors' top prospects. So if you're not showing up holistically with the attitude of how can I help you? How can I understand everything going on in your company, whether or not it's something I personally can do, then they are at risk. So it's a people threat internally with talent and also with clients. And one other, I just wanted to refer to James' comment about the PE infusion. It's interesting because I felt maybe a year ago like that private equity was really not that big of a deal or I guess catalyst for change. What we're finding now, especially in the US, is that even if firms are not being invested in or acquired by private equity, there is a snowball effect happening because of the infusion of cash in these large firms. What it does is it changes the competitive game. They're more able to afford talent. They are more able to invest in technology and different things, which changes the game for the entire profession, whether you're a $3 million or £3 million firm or not. So I'm seeing a little bit more of the infusion of private equity influencing firms. And I think that could potentially be a threat if people aren't aware of it in their markets.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you all in a moment about the upskilling area of accountants. You talked about their mindset and their fear, their lens that they're looking through, Angie. So we'll talk about what skills and attributes accountants need to stay competitive and relevant. Itamar, you've got a truly international perspective. You're there in Israel, you work in Europe and North America. What are you seeing as the biggest threats to accounting right now?
I think culture, culture is a big thing. A lot of accountants fear from change. They have years of experience doing things in one way. We serve a lot of tech companies, and they usually experience growth in a very rapid pace. And it's usually very hard for, just like everybody mentioned, it's very hard for them to keep up and bring talent to support the growth of the financial operation needs. And then there is no other way but essentially adding technology to support growth. And what we're seeing is a lot of accountants are really fear of leveraging new tools to support those growth. They rely on emails and phone calls and sort of like synchronic communication to keep up with the flow of data, and that is a huge bottleneck in their growth. We try as much as we can to provide very easy way to accountants to do their work in a more efficient way, but I think that sort of demand a leap of faith or to be open-minded, and that is a struggle that we're seeing constantly with some of our customers.
Let's talk about the accountants themselves. Todd, you spend a lot of time at Woodard training, coaching, educating accountants to be better at what they're doing. What skills do you feel are deficient that they need to step up into, or maybe even attributes that they need to acquire to stay relevant?
Right. I know domestically here in the US and probably globally as well, with all of the events, conferences, opportunities that are out there, I think we've done a great job in the profession at a leadership level, providing them with the education, the guidance, and the resources available at the leadership level. Where I think we're kind of failing is at the lower level, at a director, managerial, staff level, and getting them trained appropriately and upskilling them. They want to be upskilled on their day-to-day task, right? Okay. Bank reconciliations, cash or spend management, FP&A, reporting and that sort of thing, and how to become an advisor, how to become a better advisor. And, they want train on those soft skill day-to-day tasks. And certainly at Woodard, we're providing those kinds of resources to them. Scaling New Heights, our annual conference, is a prime example. We're encouraging, and we're working with a lot of large firms. We're encouraging those larger firms to send their entire cast team to Scaling New Heights, because it's for that lower level staff person within those firms to come and get trained on those soft skills tasks that they need to be trained on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's what we're focusing on and certainly trying to provide. Yeah.
Itamar, you talked about culture earlier. That's not something they teach with accounting qualifications and exams and accreditations. So there is a need for accountants to acquire new skills and attributes, certainly. Which ones are the main ones for you?
I think in a sense, it's sort of like instead of having a builder hat, is having an architect hat. Is instead of just solving just the problem, understanding what is the infrastructure that you need to put in place in order to solve that problem from the inception. And that is a big shift, and I think, again, like at a certain level, the problem of accounting is the problem of like, what are the tools that you can leverage in order to speed up and to be able to provide the customer with the right data, in the right time, creating the visibility that they need in order to run the business in the right way. So I think it's putting sort of like a strategic hat instead of just checking out the boxes.
That's a good point, James. You highlighted earlier, accountants are not great buyers of tech strategically, and there's a lot of things that they might be missing. I'm mindful you and I are outsiders, James. I'm a former high school math teacher, so we're not qualified accountants. And goodness me, accountants have so much going on. They've got to keep ahead of all the tax regulations. They've got to be absolutely compliant and on the money with their advice. But it seems like we're asking them to be leaders and drivers of culture and mindful of advisory services. They've also got to be tech geeks and be able to write code and do so many other things. Maybe it's too big an ask to get them to upskill much more than they are. What do you think?
I think the simple answer is probably not, in terms of actually the key thing that, as people go through the firm, and the one thing they don't do is let go. They don't let go of stuff, and so they keep bundling yet more responsibilities onto themselves and all of these sort of things. And so, when you look at a lot of firms, the managing partner still the majority of their time is actually crunching numbers, where in fact they should be given the time and space to look at strategy, to look at those things, look at the big picture stuff. So for me, I think that the big issue here is about legacy mindset. This is how accounting firms used to be run, and will still keep going. When you look at talent, you have a conversation with a firm saying, we're wanting to move in, and I hate the terminology, the advisory space or the consulting space. And then they celebrate the fact that they've got 100 trainees sat at the bottom. And you go, well, hold on a minute. How does that fit into you want to be in the consulting space? Well, we've always done it that way. Well, yeah, but that isn't the way of the accounting firm of today. And I think a lot of people are stuck in that legacy talent model position in terms of how they need to bring capacity to the firm. You're seeing a lot now of a lot more on the onshoring. I hate, again, the terminology of offshoring, but the idea of being in that sort of variable talent benches and looking at how can we quickly crunch the numbers, because actually what we want to do as a firm is add value to that data, humanize that data, and ultimately have conversations with clients that are higher margin so we can make more money. And sometimes that's a very difficult thing to say, that actually we're here to make more money. So for me, I think a lot of where the profession is all around mindset. When you talk about capacity, for me, that's capacity and generations and things. That's an alarm bell that actually these people don't really understand talent, because it's not a one size fits all. And they've really got to understand talent, and again, seeing firms using we're a family, and that worries me. This is the workplace, and we've got to be looking at the idea of, what's happening when it comes to talent. Is it the tail wagging the dog? And there was a really interesting article in the Financial Times recently where it was really challenging this thing about, the role of the workplace is not to make you feel happy or make you be fun, but it's not to make you feel any worse than you are, sort of thing. So again, it's trying to place that. And I think that, again, a lot of firms are struggling, almost like their clients. Leaders are bombarded with information. They go to all these conferences and know these great ideas, but how do you implement them strategically? And when you go to the likes of Accountex and Engage, it's like little children going into a sweet shop when they see all this tech and everyone's giving out sort of lovely colored socks and whatever. And they're going, that looks great. That looks great. And they get back and then they realize, well, crikey, none of this talks to each other. We've got 16 different data points. We can't manage our own data. So for me, the big thing is just getting the right people in the right roles, doing the right job. And you see that in the well, I would say the challenger firm market, but you don't have to go too far down where you've got people that are voluntold to do something and having to read the idiot's guide to whatever, to actually start implementing things. And that's where the efficiencies start disappearing and all of these. So there are knock-on effects at that sort of level.
And breathe. That's a good.
Thank you.
That's really calling out a lot of things there. And I'm going to give you all a wish later on with a magic wand to say if there's one thing you could correct, what would that be? Angie, at Rainmaker, you're delivering world-class programs to some of the best firms around. I know a big part of the business development and leadership stuff that you do is accountability to make sure you lock in skills and the upgrading of the learning that they've done. What do you feel are the key areas accountants need to upskill?
I agree with everything James just said. I think that was brilliant. It's a people problem. It's a technology problem. It's an advisory mindset problem. And so let me focus for just a minute on leadership. I actually just wrote an article yesterday, our contribution to a book around the difference between managers and leaders. And there is a difference, and both are needed in our firms. Sometimes, we've all seen this, firms have too many leaders but not enough managers. And then sometimes they have too many managers, but not enough leaders. And so I think it really comes down to how do you have the right mix of both? And when I talk about leadership upskilling, I'm not only referring to the managing partner or the CEO of a firm, I'm talking about it from the bottom up. I feel like if you can equip leaders to be able to lead in a new way, that where they're creating an innovative culture, they're focusing on growth, they have a strategic approach to problem solving, they're not just reactive and dealing with issues day to day. If you can do that early on in somebody's career, you've got a lot of people rowing in the same direction that can navigate the challenges in their specific market or just in the profession as a whole. So upskilling wise, I think it's leadership. I think it's management. I think it's a moving target. I think we can't rest on our laurels. When you look at other industries, and we all know this, when you look around at other industries and you see trends that are happening globally, that's a clear indication of what's coming our way in the accounting space, because we are the advisors to those people. So I think it's just a matter of, putting on your thinking cap and really getting strategic and taking the time, like James said, to really think through strategically, what do we need to be doing? I tell managing partners that the best thing they can do to create advisors to clients, because everybody's interested in that, and leaders in the firm, is to give your people the opportunity to lead. So what are your top 3 issues in your firm right now? Technology, absolutely 100 different ways, right? One of them. People, client service, offerings, packaging, pricing. Put your people in charge of those things. Don't take all of the responsibility on your shoulders as managing partner, but put other people in charge of those and let them come back to you with recommendations on what you guys should be doing in your firm, because you know what that does? Number one, it gives them buy-in and accountability, to your point, Rob. But the second thing is it creates an opportunity for them to learn how to lead. Yeah. If we wait until they're partners to demonstrate these things and never give them an opportunity, how do we expect for them to lead? So that leadership is my answer.
Yeah. We're in the business of correcting faulty thinking here as well. There's a lot of good goes on in the accounting profession. We know it's full of genuinely high quality people that really want to serve, that want to make a difference, that have a heart for business and a heart for clients. But there might be some faulty thinking. Itamar, I want to kick off with you on this one. Is there any particular myths that you would bust, or any fake news or any faulty thinking that might be holding the accounting world back?
I think there's one forming now, and I think it's impressive that we were able to talk about 30 minutes without saying AI or ChatGPT. Yeah. So, and that is probably the myth that is forming, that AI will kill the accounting profession. And I think there's nothing so far from the truth from that. I feel like AI definitely going to have a huge transformation in the profession, like in any other industry or any other aspect of our life. Is it going to kill the accounting profession? Definitely not, at least not as I can see it. It's I think what it's going to do is, it's instead of focusing on, let's say, driving, now that you have an automated driver, you can be really focused on where you want to go and why you want to go there. So I think that sort of mindset, I see, for example, we see it where we built the ability to see in real time the BVA, the budget versus actual. So instead of FP&A spending, hours and giving the business partners a look that is retroactive on the budget status, a quarter ago, now they can put it on a platform, and there they go. It's automated. Now, does that make the FP&A profession or the FP&A role goes away? No, absolutely not. Now they have actual time to sit with the business partner and talk about the business goals and how they can adjust the budget according to the business goals. And I think that sort of like example can exist in every other aspect, in tax and any other aspect of the accounting profession.
Angie, any wrongs that you want to right?
Honestly, I think some of the faulty thinking or fake news is actually not faulty thinking or fake news. I think that sometimes the profession gets a reputation of working people to death during deadline season, not having a work-life balance. That's not true holistically, but I think it's still true in pockets. I wish that people understood the incredible, how rewarding it is to do the work that our clients do in the profession. I interviewed a couple of up and coming superstar people in a firm in New York a couple of years ago that were probably 3 to 5 years in. And I sat with them with a group of consultants and I said, what would you change? What's the first thing you would change if you were the managing partner of your firm? And they said, I wish that early on I could do the kind of work that I'm doing now, where I see the influence and the impact that the work we're doing is having on their business. I've had people call me and say, we would not be in business if it weren't for you. And Angie, if I had known that in college, I would have made the decision a long time ago to go into this profession. So I wish people knew how incredibly rewarding and interesting the work in this profession is, and they didn't think about it as only tax, only audit, working too much. That's what I would change.
You've just preempted my next question because I'm going to give you a wish. So either embellish on that one or get another one ready if you've got a genie out of the bottle. Todd, what about you? What do you think of the faulty lines, the thought lines in accounting?
Yeah, look, I mean, we're compliance driven. We're an assurance, backed industry, so for us to say that there's a bunch, some faulty thinking or fake news out there, I don't know. I mean, what I can tell you is, we are seeing a paradigm shift from being a historical or in a reactive state to a proactive one, right? The advisory side of things. We're finally starting to see that shift actually happen, right? And I think a lot of that is probably due to the technology that James has kind of been referring to, and the technology is finally reaching a point where more technologies are communicating with one another. We've got real-time actionable data at our fingertips to respond to it, and that sort of thing. And firms are starting to get a greater percentage of use and capacity out of that technology versus many years ago they didn't. They were fortunate; they got 20% of use out of that particular technology. I also agree with what Itamar is saying on the AI side of things. The myth about AI. It's funny, when I was at Vic AI about 5 years ago, which was an accounts payable solution supported by an AI engine. So it would basically take the invoice, capture and code all that data, and allocate it correctly at a line item level. And then the human would have to come in and review what the AI engine had done for it. Okay, previously to that. Everybody, oh, you're going to displace my job. It's like, they didn't trust it. They didn't understand it. It's funny how a little over a year ago, a little AI engine came along called Chat GPT, and how easily that light bulb went off, right? And everybody now understands it. And now we're at the generative AI side of things. And I think what we're going to continue to see happen this year, especially, are real life use cases around what that AI is actually going to do and solve for me. And people will continue to understand it and embrace it more. So whether that's faulty thinking or fake news, I don't know, or myth buster related, I don't know, but I think it's all encompassing.
Yeah. James, what about you? What do we need to correct here?
Well, again, following on the AI thing, I think that my fear about AI is, number one, for the vast majority of the profession, it's still about digitalization, and almost AI is a complete red herring, and they're jumping on board to it. It will come, but it will cascade down from the big firms, the middle market, and what have you. There's probably more AI in Excel, and that's the number one software used by the accounting profession still. So, and it's interesting, Accounting Today put out an article about AI, and I'm just reading it here. Of the profession, 63% believe AI will mean a loss of personal touch with customers and clients. And yet, surely AI will actually deliver more because you've got more time to be spending with your clients. So, there is so many mixed feelings. And I almost look at it around technology. For a lot of people, it's half empty rather than half full. And again, I think the difficulty is that firms really need to understand their story. What are they actually trying to do? There's nothing wrong being a numbers factory, but build your business, build your team, incentivize your team, have the right technology that delivers the margins you need to be a numbers factory. Others want to do more, but unless you understand that story, and I think for me, that sort of wish list is that firms are just a lot more honest about what they're trying to do and what they're able to do, and they deliver on that, rather than trying to do everything. And again, they're bombarded with information. Here's another great practice group you can do, or whatever. And it's actually just really understanding, what are you really good at? Where can you add value? And by the way, tell that story better. And Angie, totally agree with you. I think the whole issue that the profession has got is it is awful at telling its story. An outsider looking in, I think it is one of the most incredible professions out there. The power, the influence that accountants, and we probably should stop calling them accountants because that's not really their role anymore, but there's success partners, whatever you want to call them, the power they can have around helping individuals with wealth and businesses going from growth to scale is immense. And that's where the fun is. And by the way, that's also where the money is.
Well, I'm going to give you all a magic wand. And just a quick fire round, but what one thing would you wish if it could happen overnight? Angie, I'll start with you. So you could click your fingers and tomorrow it would all be solved. What would you go for?
The same thing that we're talking about with telling of the story of the impact that we're having with clients. I wish that every new hire, every college or university student understood what a cool profession it is and how rewarding it is. And I think it would change the game if they did.
Itamar, what about you? What one wish would you go for?
I think to change the culture to be an adaptive culture rather than forcing our old way of doing things. Try to listen to customers and see how they running their businesses and how we can support them in the way that they manage the business.
Todd, genie's out of the bottle. What are you going for? The power at your fingertips now.
Right. I'd like to kind of continue to see this paradigm shift to a C-suite type of leadership model away from the partnership model, which I think is a dying model. I mean, and Angie, you could probably relate to this on the Rainmaker side of things. The Rainmaker model is not sustainable anymore. It's not. And these firms have got to continue to kind of think more holistically and globally what's in the best interest of the firm and not a particular rainmaker who's making the decisions with or has historically made those decisions for that firm. And so that would be a wish for me to kind of continue to see that model moving forward.
Yeah. James, wish from you?
Stop. And by that, I mean, just stop doing what you're doing, take a step back and look back into your business. And as I see it at the moment, accounting firm leadership is a bit like chefs don't like cooking at home in terms of they're very good at giving advice to clients and growing clients. But when it comes to actually looking at their business, the partnership model stinks. And, again, most firms, and yes, you have got the leading firms and the ones that are making the headlines that have got C-suite, they've got people from outside of the profession running the business. But these are people who are good business people, not necessarily accountants, but they're running the business. They've got external people doing marketing. They've got external people doing, and I say external, out of the profession. They're the ones that are flying. They're going from good to great. And so for me, it's stop, think, and really understand what you as a firm are trying to do, and then live it, breathe it, 100%. Don't try and be everything to everyone.
Let's see if we can make that a wish. I'm curious about what makes the good firms great. I've just put that in the Zoom chat as our next question. As you all work with accounting firms, you see examples of good ones and examples of great ones. Todd, in your view, what's the difference?
Leadership, for sure, hands down. The firms that have a great, group of leaders who are willing to kind of pass that torch down, like we've already talked about, and giving the young and upcoming talent an opportunity to become a future leader, to train them, to educate them, to prepare them for that, to help them become an advisor and a better advisor to their clients. I think that's a way to go from good to great. And I also think Itamar referred to it earlier about cultural. We've got too many cultural indifferences, and I'd really like to see that become better as well within firms. I mean, the firms that I work with, it's one of the very first things I can see on site is talking to the partners and the staff at that firm, and you can immediately tell whether that firm's got a good culture or not, and how detrimental that can be to the firm and what they would need to want to improve.
Yeah. James, bridging the gap, good to great.
Those firms that are doing it, they just get their story and they live their story, and that cascades down to everything they do. And I use the word story because I think a lot of firms have got really lost in purpose, vision, mission, all of those sort of things. They did a DIY approach to it and they wonder why they're in a bit of a mess. So for me, it's keeping things really simple. And by the way, accountants like to overcomplicate things. The process here is actually quite simple. And the key thing here, and we're seeing it a lot in the media at the moment, and it seems to be this eureka moment. It's about people. It's about relationships. It's about understanding the client's pain and talking to them in their language, not the language of an accountant. Because do you know what? They're coming to you because they've got so much data, they've got so many issues, and they just want you, we use this term, humanizing data, They want to help you humanize, they want you to humanize their data and take them on to the next level. So I think it is that case of just not bombarding them, but really taking that step back approach of delivering to in their language, to their needs, and helping them to grow.
Yeah. Itamar, good to great for accounting firms?
I think I'm going to take one of what James said about one size fit all. And I feel like a lot of good firms just have sort of like a cookie cutter, formula of how they work with their customers. And sometimes you're seeing in their tech stack where they're like, they're just like throwing a bundle of technology over the customer without really seeing if that's the problem they need to solve. And I think that could be actually coming from tech. I think, that could be a double-edged sword in a sense that, there could be an inflation of tools and it could create chaos within the company or within the customer. So I think actual listening to the problems, actual listening to the customer, understanding the dynamic that is there, and then adapting the technology and the tools and the mindset to the customer. That's what makes an accounting firm great.
Angie, we're getting a lot back here about what accountants specifically can do to go from good to great. Tell better stories, listen better, ask more questions, be more advisory in their approach. But accounting firms as an entity, we see good ones and we see great ones. We've heard about leadership as driving the great ones. What's your view on good to great?
I think we must stop lollygagging. And what that means is spending time doing things that are not useful or serious. And we talk about the partnership model. I do think that there should be more of a move to the corporate model, just in terms of not sitting around a boardroom for 6 months making a decision where everybody's on board and has to vote. That takes too long. We don't have time for that. So I would say those that make decisions that are decisive, that have strong leadership, as Todd mentioned. The other thing I see is those that are serious about culture, to Itamar's point, those that are serious about culture and those that invest in their people at every level to create what I'll call rainmakers of their own brand, whether it's a super client server, somebody that's really good at developing people or leadership, or somebody that brings in, the big dollars. People firms that invest in their people, that prioritize culture and do not sit around twiddling their thumbs hoping that everybody gets on board with change are the ones that are great.
Yeah. Let's go for predictions. Let's get the crystal ball out. And if I were to give you $1 million at the roulette table and bet on black or red, but you'd be absolutely sure that this is going to happen. James, let's start with you. One prediction that is absolutely 100% going to take place.
Most of the accounting profession won't change. That's the slightly controversial one, but I think,
well, why would they change? They're all making money.
Well, exactly.
They're all growing.
So I think that maybe the slightly more in your face one is that I think that many within the fintech space will change their go-to-market offering. The likes of Xero, Sage, Inuit, they'll just go straight to client. And Xero did some research a while back, and a vast majority of their client base said, why will we need an accountant later on? Well, okay, that's another debate. But I do think that's going to happen as investors in those three predominantly platforms are going to want greater return on their investments. And I suppose the final one, if I may, audit, I think that's radically going to change. And I think that that's going to be real-time central data grabbing, and firms will buy off those data hubs. And so that, again, that will dramatically change the look and feel of what an audit practice does within a firm, and ultimately how they have to deal with data to then talk to the clients and add value to their client relationship.
Angie, what about you? You're going to put all your money on one thing. What's it going to be?
I think it's already happening. I think that the traditional accounting firm is moving to more of an advisory firm. I know that some of my clients only acquire non-CPA firms and non-accounting firms now, and they'll have technology firms or others, data analytics, you name it. I think the business model is changing, and even the lollygaggers, if you will, those that are change resistors, ultimately will be impacted by that. But I think with all of the combinations that we're hearing about with the large firms and just the consolidation in general globally, we're seeing it every day. I think it's a business model change.
Lollygaggers. That's a new word to my vocabulary. Thanks for educating.
It's an important one, Rob, to know. It's an important. Yeah.
Itamar, what about you? If you're going to put your house on something, what is going to happen 100%?
I agree with Angie. I think the way I see it is that two main issues that accountant deals with them a lot today are going to disappear. One is classification, and the other one is reconciliation. I think those two words going to be eaten up by AI in the next 5 to 10 years, where a lot of the context for transaction, invoices, any other form of documents could be found in the open web or within the organizational data. And then same thing goes with reconciliation. So the ability to connect two dots within different systems, I think those are going to be solved issues. And then, the problem is, like I said before, is not how you drive, but where do you want to go? Being able to surface that data and being a partner to the business, that's going to be the main focal point of the accounting world.
Todd, what are you going to put your mansion on? What's definitely going to happen?
Well, the Mega Millions lottery hit in New Jersey here for over $1 billion yesterday where I live, and I unfortunately did not draw the winning ticket. So that would have been my crystal ball prediction, and I probably wouldn't be on the panel session today. But in all truthfulness and reality here, look, the buy-sell opportunity, 100%, it's going to be an absolute huge opportunity in market in coming years. The baby boomers are finally realizing that they want to retire, they want to settle down, they want to sell off their practices. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity there, to get into the buy-sell market and to grow and expand your business organically that way. At Woodard Summit last fall, we had about 100 of our members there, and Joe Woodard asked the audience, how many of you are looking to sell your firm in the next 2 to 5 years? 50% of the hands went up in the room. Okay, that's the reality of it, and I see a huge opportunity for, we're seeing it too. Angie referred to it on the PE side, obviously at a larger scale, and firms are acquiring non-credentialed, non-CPA practices and molding them into, the credentialed practice. We're going to continue to kind of see that happen at a larger scale and a much lower scale as well.
So much change, so many exciting opportunities, so many challenges. I'm going to ask you all for a closing comment and lift the mood, if you like, with some messages of hope. So I'm asking you, and James, we'll start with you on this one. Why is this a good time to be an accountant or be working in the accounting world? Because we've righted a lot of wrongs, but this is a great game to be in, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, look, I think there's so much opportunity, and every conversation should start with opportunity rather than challenge. There are always going to be challenges, but the opportunity is out there. And the sweet spot for the accounting profession is around how do you manage just data. Data is king, both in terms of how you manage a firm, but also how clients are going to go from great to success as well. And that's where the real value is how can you as a firm suck that data in the quickest possible way? How can you mine and engineer that data and then put it into a language that actually adds value to the relationship with your client? And I think to be having those sort of conversations with clients just will tick all the boxes in terms of recruitment, retention, development, success, growth to scale, all of those sort of things. But let's not forget, there's still a place in the market for those number crunchers. And when we're looking at technology, the difficulty for the profession is there is still a massive market full of people. Their accounts are still receipts and shoeboxes. And digital AI can't do anything about that yet. So there is still going to be this lag for those firms. But for me, it's a really exciting time for those with the right mindset, we've got it, and we want to go and get it.
Yeah. Itamar, for you, why is this a good time to be in the accounting game?
I think now more than ever, accounting is a key enabler to the business. And by saying that, I don't mean just working with the business leaders. I feel that today's company are way more dispersed and decentralized. And in a sense, almost every employee is a buyer. And there's more and more decision makers. There's more and more budget owners. and be able to provide that sort of like platform of connecting the different part of the business through the financial decision, through the financial operation, I think it's affecting more people's life in a sense, the quality of running their business. And it's not just, like talking with a few of the operators within the business. So for me, this is becoming, a people's challenge, and that makes it so much more exciting than what it was 15 or 20 years ago.
Yeah. Todd, you're smiling. Good time to be in the accounting game?
Always a good time, Rob. I've been in the profession for 20 years and I've had opportunities to go outside, and I said, why the hell would I want to do that? Right. And I'm here to retire. But it's the year of the rabbit, like the Chinese calendar says. I think it's the year of the advisor. We've been preaching this for 5 to 10 years now. And unfortunately, it takes that long for this industry to make that kind of change. I really do think that we're going to see a pivot to wanting to become better advisors to our clients. Non-credentialed, which we're seeing, you can only call them advisor because they're non-credentialed, right? Versus a CPA domestically here in the US. And we're also seeing firms make that pivot to CAS, client advisory services, RAS, risk advisory services, TAS, tax advisory services. So this paradigm shift is actually happening. I see it continuing to trend in that direction.
Right. Angie, it's fitting we give the last word to you. You've been in this game a long time, and you're a very passionate advocate for accountancy and all the great things it does. Why, for you, is this the best time to be in this game?
I think everybody, for the most part in the profession, really good people. I think they're loyal. I think it's always a good time because of the nature of the profession. But really, the sky's the limit. There's no playbook at this point. And I think those that step up and figure it out and work really hard and pave their own way, they can achieve anything. I've always liked that. I've always liked, to not be limited in what I can do. And I think there are a lot of people like all of us out there that feel the same way. So the sky's the limit. If you've got smart people that are willing to embark on, all of these challenges and changes, then, there's never been a better time.
And it's going to be really exciting seeing this new generation come through that are totally tech savvy, that are going to change the culture and work-life balance and approach to mental resilience and well-being in accounting firms, the private equity plays there. So much good stuff going on. What a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, all of you, for your passion, your insights, your candor, your preparation today, and for joining us here on the Accounting Influencers podcast.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Rob.